Good morning to everyone. So our topic for today and our discussion is about the behaviorism presented by Edward Thorndike. So in this discussion, we will talk about how does Thorndike came up with the theory of connectionism. Number two is we will also discuss about the three primary laws presented by Thorndike. And the last one, eventually, we can able to master the behaviorism as the theory of learning by Thorndike. So in this discussion, we need to remember or note the terms we will use. The first is a stimulus, which is it is something that cause of something else to happen, develop, and became more active. So, ito yung dahilan kung bakit tayo kumikilos. Ito yung mga bagay na nagpapakilos sa atin na gawin ang isang bagay. So, the second term is response. It is something said or written to reply in stimulus. Ito yung pagtugon natin sa stimuli or stimulus natin. So, yun. Let us proceed naman sa theory and experiment of Thorndike. But first, let us know a little about Thorndike. So, Edward Thorndike, 1898, was a famous psychologist for his work on his learning theory that led to the development of operant conditioning within behaviorism. So, he led about the study and development of operant conditioning, whereas classical conditioning depends on the developing association between events. Operant conditioning involves learning from the consequences of our behavior. So, nagfo-focus ito sa we can acquire learning through our behavior pa rin. So, Thorndike presented the theory of connectionism in his experiment about how does the environment affects the behavior of the child or affects the learning of the child. So, this includes connection between the stimuli and the response to acquire the needed learning. And now let's discover Thorndike's experiment. So Edward Thorndike initially proposed that human and animals acquire behaviors through the association of stimuli and responses. So he focused on the relationship of stimuli and response. Thorndike studied learning in animals. So, usually, gumagamit siya ng mga animals para sa experiment niya. Usually, sa experiment na to, he used cats. He devised a classic experiment in which he used a puzzle box to empirical test the laws of learning. So, ginawa niya dito sa experiment na to is, he put the cat inside the box, and he discovers that how cat can create its own strategy para makalabas sa box na yun. Then, makain niya yung fish na nasa labas ng box. So, let's watch this video to know how Thorndike conducted his experiment.
But how is a new skill learned? That was a question which began to fascinate Thorndike. To answer it, he built some ingenious puzzle boxes from which cats could only escape by operating latches.
And in you go.
The cat appears to be very clever in engineering its escape, solving the problem with a deftly placed paw and a push of its nose. But Thorndike didn't believe that an animal, even a clever cat, understands the consequences of its behavior. When he placed a cat in the puzzle box for the first time, Thorndike was unable to see any evidence of flashes of insight. The successful actions appeared first by chance. He proved that the apparent cleverness arose by trial and error, and used graphs to measure the rate of learning. A well-practiced cat quickly recalls the actions that help it escape to its reward of food. If an action brings a reward, Thorndike believed that that action becomes stamped into the mind. In his thesis, he explained further his ideas about learning, that behavior changes because of its consequences. He called this his law of effect, which explained how even wild creatures develop new habits.
So the video showed us that the stimuli was the food or the desire of the cat to eat that food. Yun yung considered as a stimuli doon. Yun yung nagpapakilos sa pusa. Yung food at saka yung desire niyang kainin yun. So, and we have observed how cat responded to its stimuli. So, we watched the different strategies that cat developed to eat the food or the fish outside the box. So, we will now study about the behavior of the cat. So, as we can see in this diagram, at first, the behavior of the cat was made randomly. So, kasi nga, nag-experiment pa yung cat or hinahanap pa niya yung tamang paraan para mabuksan niya ng mabilisan yung box. Kaya, hindi pa efficient yung time na in-spend niya sa pagbubukas ng box. So, but the experiment goes by, the behavior of the cat became more ordered and its move became more efficient. The cat made changes and created good strategy just to reach the fish outside the box. So, eventually, sa end ng experiment, nakuha na ng cat yung tamang response or action para mabuksan niya sa pinakamabilis na oras yung box at makain niya yung pagkain sa labas ng box. So, we can see the connection between the stimulus and the response. On the same situation, on application, we can achieve learning when we form association between stimulus and response. It is a learning process by doing trial and error. So, katulad ng ginawa nung cat, experiment siya, trial and error. It means that we can acquire learning when we do it repeatedly or multiple times until we adapt it eventually. So, in learning, we can repeat it multiple times, paulit-ulitin natin para ma-master natin yung isang bagay. So, as a wrap, there is acquired learning sa side ng cat. So, in this experiment, Thorndike presented 3 laws. These are the law of effect, law of readiness, and law of exercise. So, first, let us discuss about the law of effect. So, law of effect is it is a response to a situation followed by reward state that can strengthen and become habitual response to the stimuli. It talks about the positive and the negative response to stimuli. Example ng law of effect is yung cat inside the box is impulsive and tried to open the box pero hindi iyon gumana agad-agad. Because of that, hindi na naging effective yung strategy niya. Kaya the cat tried to claw all over the box para mahanap yung kung paano niya mabubuksan yung box. Then the cat finally found the way how to open the box. And inulit-ulit niya yon dahil naging maganda yung effect ng experiment niya. And eventually, nabuksan niya yung box in its shortest time. So, there are 2 parts or forms of law of effect. These are positive and negative. So, positive, if the response can produce a satisfying effect that the act might be repeated again. So, kapag yung effect ng response is yung ginawa natin para matugunan yung stimuli natin ay maganda yung naging effect niya, marahil uulit-ulitin natin yung process. In application, kapag before the test, the student made a lot of time for reviewing. And then the test came and he got the highest score. So the effect was positive and satisfying. So the response or the action toward the stimuli might be repeated again. So dahil nag-review, dahil madaming nakuha yung estudyante sa kanyang test, so more likely na uulit-ulitin niya yung pag-review before ng exam para marami ulit siyang makuha sa test. So the second form is the negative. So it is if the response can produce a discomforting effect, it will less likely to occur again in the situation. Ito naman kapag yung effect ng isang action or response natin is nakaka-disappoint or negative, magbabago tayo ng strategy or action para hanggang mahanap natin yung best action na towards our the positive outcome. Example application nito is before the test, the student did not review at all. So the effect after the exam was negative and discomforting. Syempre, mababa yung nakuha niya. Then the student realized that his action or his response to the stimuli was not good and tried to change it until he came up to the response or action that can lead him into the satisfying effect. So ito naman, yung negative is hindi nag-review yung student, then negative yung outcome. So ang gagawin ng student is magbabago siya ng strategy, hindi na nauulitin yung action na yon kasi alam niyang magiging negative yung effect. So ang gagawin niya is magre-review na siya, change strategy for the better outcome of the action. Yon yung law of effect. So let us proceed to the second law, which is the law of readiness. Law of readiness is a series of responses that can chain together to satisfy same goal. Individuals learn best when they are physically, mentally, and emotionally ready to learn. And they do not learn well if they see no reason for learning. So, para maka-acquire ng better learning, we should be ready na matuto ng mga bagong bagay. Tulad ng nasa experiment, the cat was annoyed because there is food outside but couldn't eat it. So the cat was ready to learn new skill and make new moves to satisfy its need. So example application naman. So inside the classroom, as a teacher, we should create strategies that can encourage our student to learn and to make them ready for acquiring learning. Example, the teacher may give warm-up before the class or make an introduction for the next discussion or give the students motivation. Nang sa ganon, makakapag-ready yung mga students na mag-acquire ng bagong learning at bagong skill. Yun, yung example. So, number 3, the last law presented was the law of exercise. It talks about the connection between stimulus and response. Frequently made association become strengthened. Likewise, rare or sporadic association become weak. So, ito naman yung kailangan ng application para matuto yung isang bata. Hindi lang basta nakikinig yung isang bata, but we should try to do the knowledge. We should let them try to do the acquire knowledge para ma-master nila yung learning talaga. Example application inside the classroom. So as a teacher, we should give our students opportunity to practice and exercise what they have learned. We should also give them the chance to repeat and apply the knowledge they've got and give them reviewing materials if necessary. In this way, they can master the learning. Kaya, kailangan natin na hayaan sila na ma-experience yung dinidiscuss or sinasabi natin from the word exercise. Yun, the law of exercise. We can let the students practice and exercise what knowledge they have acquired para mas matuto sila. So, That's all about my report. And in this discussion, I learned that this theory of Edward Thorndike, help us to understand the way of acquiring learning. So this theory indicates the importance of trial and error method for our improvement. It encourages me and us that if we want to learn more, we should be ready for all the trials, the repetitions, and the errors that we may encounter throughout the way. As a future educator, we should also follow those laws that we have discussed that was presented by Thorndike to help our students to learn in the future. This might be the best way to motivate them, train them, and eventually help them to find their talent and bring out their best to learn. This theory of behaviorism proposed by Thorndike was really effective for us as a student and as a future educator. So we need to master this behaviorism by Edward Thorndike. So that's all about my report. I hope you learned something. Bye-bye.